Go on, skive off, nip back and watch a few Star Trek episodes. Now, note what they're passing from hand to hand with all their data and notes on. It's a Lumia 1520, surely, or something darn close, maybe a Sony Xperia Z Ultra, which is about the same size. The Lumia 1520 in particular feels like a slice of the future. Well, a future at any rate, assuming that this form factor takes off. What I think is more likely is that 6-inch phablets like this will remain a niche. A profitable one for the likes of Samsung, Nokia and Sony, no doubt, but a niche nevertheless. As I've said before, the human hand isn't increasing in size anytime soon, and I have enough trouble using my Galaxy Note as a phone here. Now put the popular Note 2, one of the first phablets, against the Lumia 1520, and you can see the issue. Here for comparison is what most people still consider to be normal for a phone. This is the Lumia 920 from the end of 2012. By the way, just because I've been asked, this is also comparison of the 1520 versus a Nexus 7, and the screen's only 1 inch smaller, so, well, that's an editorial for another day. Look, I get that it's good to have a choice, but some form factors are, if we're honest, solutions looking for a problem. If the 1520 were a tablet running a tablet OS, say Windows 8 RT, but shrunk down, it might just be viable, but the 1520 runs, unashamedly, the almost unaltered Windows Phone 8, resulting in many of the applications and most of the interface appearing oversized. This is the first time for many years that I've had to complain that the text on my phone is too big. I actually have to hold the phone further away in order to read the whole screen comfortably. But don't think I'm being negative across the board. The 1520's hardware is drop dead gorgeous. It's smooth, sleek, ultra thin. The 1080 display here is to die for. The camera is halfway to that on my current love, the Lumia 1020 here. The internals are as high spec as anything in the Android world. It's physically impossible to pick up the 1520, play with it and not exclaim, wow, Nokia makes some really good hardware. So an oversized phone, eh? What's different from the Windows Phone 8 devices you've seen before? Well, the start screen is one of the few things in the OS that has been optimized for the larger, higher resolution screens, with effectively a 6-wide grid of tiles, with individual live tiles being 1, 2 or 4, though not 6 wide. The whole live tile approach does work very well in practice. I should know, having lived with it day to day on my 1020 for months now, and the extra flexibility on the 1520 makes for some attractive and useful tile layouts. Pick the right tiles, pushing the right info at you. I'd even say that this system does more for the user than Android's widget-based home screen approach. However, as I said earlier, the 1520 is at heart just a big phone, and there hasn't been much effort put into adapting the interface once designed for 3.8-inch screen phones for something almost twice as big. Let's take the photos gallery, for example. Here's the camera roll. Core apps like this, where there are lists of items and objects, do allow a little more content, but most of the obvious candidates, Internet Explorer, for example, don't really show any more of pages than smaller phones. Okay, the rendered text in Internet Explorer on the 1520 and other apps is wonderfully high resolution, but you don't actually see more content most of the time. The problem is exemplified best by going into settings, ease of access here, where there's a text size setting. Surely by reducing this, we can use the 6-inch 1080p screen far more effectively in most apps. No, the 1520 ships with this already set to the smaller size. This is as small as it gets, and it's still too big, even for my eyes on this screen a lot of the time. What was needed was an extra text size or two included in this build of Windows Phone, especially for this and the budget version, the Lumia 1320, both with 6-inch screens. Ah well, there's nothing in the software here that's exclusive anymore, by the way. The Lumia Black Update and apps like Storyteller are now available for all of the Nokia Lumias, so it's really all about the hardware and the form factor. Inside is a Snapdragon 800 running at 2.2 GHz. That's a lot for a Windows phone, and 2 GB of RAM, 32 GB of internal storage and micro SD. If Microsoft can optimize the software a bit more here, this could be a heck of a flagship, you know. There's a great camera and speaker too, two components you know I care about. The camera is slightly larger than that in most smartphones, with a 1/2.5-inch optical format sensor and a really well optimized dual LED flash. At 20 megapixels raw resolution, there's some pure view oversampling and lossless zoom too, though not taken to the same extent as on my beloved 1020. Using the 1520 as a camera or camcorder, mind you, looks a little ridiculous. Shades of using an iPad mini as a camera, but at least Nokia's glorious clear black display polarizers mean you can always see what you're shooting, unlike some other smartphones I could mention from the likes of Sony and Huawei. And with some very weak sunshine at last. Again, looking at cinematic panning and smoothness here on the OIS on both the 1020 and the 1520. Floodwaters here in the UK. Again, we'll try the zoom. That really is quite a distant pub up there. Let's see how far each of the devices gets in terms of framing and zoom and detail. We'll keep it zoomed and pan round to the canal boat. Let's have a look. Likewise, the speaker's very good, together with the enormous and colourful LCD screen. This makes for a superb media watching experience. A typical Nokia top-end quality loudspeaker there. Now, if only there was a good YouTube client or a decent Netflix app. MetroTube does well enough, and maybe the Netflix app, which does exist for Windows Phone, will get a makeover sometime soon. Battery life is excellent, as you'd expect with such a large capacity, though it's sealed, of course. Cue my usual worries about resets and longevity. Summing up, my biggest question is not, is the Lumia 1520 any good? It patently is a fabulous slice of silicon, but who's going to buy it? Smartphone newcomers wanting a phablet might look at this next to the Galaxy Note 3 or Note 2, but then wouldn't they be swayed by the latter's brand name, the far larger selection of apps and sexy stylus? Windows Phone fans could upgrade to this, the biggest and highest specified of the breed, but they'd have to really want a bigger screen. And the likes of the 925 and the 920 here are a far better fit for average person phone use, if I'm honest. The Lumia 1520 right now is a little out in no man's land. Can I foresee Microsoft pulling out all the stops and producing a next-gen update for this hardware that makes far better use of the horsepower and the screen real estate? Well, maybe. I hope so. Otherwise, this lovely piece of electronics is going to be rather wasted. It's another of my sponsored but nonetheless honest looks at some of my favourite Pro Porter products. I'm only mentioning the stuff I really like. In this case, it's slightly limited and it's only available for iPhone owners so far, but surely if there's enough demand, we'll see Samsung Galaxy S4 and Note and Motorola G versions too. It's Pro Porter's new Nyon bulletproof carbon fibre lined case. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't get shot at very often. But the fact that Pro Porter has tested it here in the inset by shooting at it with a shotgun gives an indication of how tough this material really is. The actual carbon fibre is inlaid into the flip cover, which is premium leather. Yep, smells like it. And there's a tough plastic shell around the iPhone's metal back and a magnetic catch to hold the whole thing in place. The end result is super top end, as you'd expect at £40 or so. My only question really is when Pro Porter is going to come out with a similar case for other devices. I'm totally sold on the design and the materials used here.